Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari, and this is Great Big History Podcast. In this episode, we talk about the Greek art form of drama, the theater. In our last episode, we talked about Homer, the most important artist in Greek culture. He was in the 800s. Drama, though, will hit its height in the 400s. The golden age of Greece was also the golden age of literature. And drama is important. The theater is important because it was public entertainment, whereas Homer was something you could do in private. Homer was something you could do alone. Drama was always in public, and we know it's important because of how big the theaters were. There are theaters that could hold 2,000 to 3,000 people. Now remember, a typical Greek city in the ancient world was about 5,000 to 8,000 people. Plataea, which was the site of a major battle in both the Peloponnesian War and the Persian Wars, had 800 men in it. So you're talking maybe 2,000 people. And they had a theater that could fit basically everybody in it. So that tells you just how popular drama was. Are the Eagles a popular team? Yes. Why? Because they have a stadium that could hold 70,000 people in it. It's the largest container of people in Philadelphia. So drama is important, and it's public. It is only performed in public by a group of people for the public. Everything about it is geared towards telling the story to lots of people simultaneously. 2, how do they tell these stories? Well, they tell these stories using classical characters and themes. There's a lot of Homer in these dramas. The writers, Aeschylus and Sophocles, will take things that Homer writes and then write the next chapter. So, there's a bunch about how Agamemnon gets murdered. We know he does because in the Odyssey, it's referenced that Agamemnon got murdered by his wife. But he doesn't go into it. Sophocles, Aeschylus will. They'll tell their stories. And so they use classical characters and themes like Mary Poppins or Snow White or Cinderella. When you go and see a Disney fairy tale, when you go and see Snow White, you know how it's going to end because it's a classical fairy tale. You know they're going to live happily ever after. So why are you going to see Snow White? It's not to learn who lives and who dies. The evil witch dies. The young girl lives. She's saved by a kiss from the prince. All those things have to happen. If those things don't happen, it's another story. Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty has to sleep. It's her movie, and yet she's asleep for 90% of it. But you know how it's going to end. Cinderella marries the prince. Philip defeats Maleficent. These are the way the story's written. It has to happen that way. So you know how this is going to end. So why go and see it? Because you want to see how well it's done. You want to see what the writer can add to it, how they can modernize the story. So the idea is you're not surprised. You're not sitting there going, oh, I wonder what this story is going to be. You know Oedipus kills his father and marries his mother. You know. But what you want to see is how is it done? How are they revealed? What's the steps leading up to it? That's what makes it good literature. Not whether or not there's a surprise twist in the middle. No. We're cool with not having surprise twists. We want the theme. We want the story. And we want it to how well you're going to tell it. 3. How the plays are set up, how drama is set up, is to have an actor and the chorus literally standing there on stage. An actor stands on one side by themselves. Now, the actors, all these people are men, by the way, and the men will represent women. Antigone is a woman, but he's played by a man. But the actor stands alone, while the chorus stands as a group and many times speaks together. or speaks as a group. Alternating their lines so they don't speak on top of each other, but they'll speak as a group, and they're the chorus. So the actor is the individual, and the chorus represents the group. Why? Why do it this way? Because Greeks, and especially Athenians, had a problem. What does democracy and freedom value? It values the individual. It values the I. I think, I want. That's great, but there's a problem. How do I live in a we and an us? We've talked about the problem of the commons already in the early settled people Babylonian section with the walls. But I don't want to pay taxes. So why should I be made to pay taxes? Because there's a we. And this is the fight. Ultimately, this is the fight those of you who are teenagers or can remember being teenagers have had with your parents. Ultimately, it is, I know what I'm doing. If you have ever said, Mom, I'm an adult, you're saying I'm an individual and I can make my own choices. And they respond with, no, you can't. You are a dependent, a child, or you don't know enough, or fine, you're an adult. Now you have to have the responsibility to act like the rest of us. The chorus represents the group, the values of the group, the way things are done, while the individual represents the I. And what Greeks had to figure out is, how do you have a civilization of I's that you can put together into a we that will work for everybody else, that will help each other? That's the question. And that's what Greek drama tries to do. And so the value is listen to tradition, the way we do things, or else bad things will happen. It is the tension between individual freedom and the group. So you have done this. Maybe you have done this. Have you had a fight with your parents? About your curfew. I can stay out all night. I'm not going to get into trouble. I'm not going to do anything crazy. Don't you trust me? What difference does it make if I come home at 11 or at 3 a.m.? And the answer is going to be yes, it makes a lot of difference, because nothing good ever happens after 3 a.m. And just talk to taxi drivers or Uber drivers. They will tell you. But they'll go as a group and say, no, we've done it. We have been there. Yes, we have dated the guy with the tattoo that says my mom never loved me, and it doesn't work out. We know that. Listen to us. It is better to get 8 hours of sleep than to throw up on your shoes from drinking too much. It is just listen to us. We know. We've been there. We've done it. It is the group versus the individual, the I versus the we. So we see this in Oedipus. Aristotle says Oedipus is the greatest of all plays. He holds it up as his example of the greatest of all plays. That's one reason why of Sophocles' 100+ plays, only 7 exist, and all 3 of the Oedipus plays exist. His everything was done in trilogies, and so all his trilogy of Oedipus is the only. I think it's the only trilogy that exists. As it's known as the Oresteia. And what is that a story of? It's a story of hubris. It's Oedipus saying, I know. I want to know who my family is. I am an orphan. I want to know who my mom is. I want to know who my dad is. And the entire play is the group, the chorus going, it's okay. Don't worry. It's cool, Oedipus. You're king of Thebes. Life is good. You got a good wife. You got wonderful kids. You're awesome. Everybody respects you. Do you all respect them? Yeah? Yeah? We all respect you. Just be happy with what you have. He says, no, I need to know, who am I? Who am I? I'm Oedipus. I don't know who I am. I need to know. I can find out. And what does he find out? finds out the dude who he murdered on the road was his dad. And he goes, oh, I murdered my dad, which is terrible. You're a patricide. You also murdered the king of thieves, so you're a regicide. Well, that's not good. The gods are going to be mad about that. And then his wife comes in and goes, who did you murder? I murdered this dude. Who was my dad? And she turns to him and says, that was my husband. And I just looks at her and goes, Mom? And she looks at him and says, I'll be right back. And goes into their house, murders their children, and commits suicide. And one of the most famous scenes in all of drama. Because it's so horrible that her children are born of incest, that she has had sex with her son, that not only has she had sex with her son, but her son has murdered her husband. How could you do that? And so she commits suicide. All because Oedipus had to know, had to look. Everybody had absolved him. Nobody knew. It was okay. What you don't know can't hurt you. Unless you go looking for it because you have hubris. And it leads to the death of a lot of people. In fact, it's going to lead to death of generations of people. In the next 2 stories, more people are going to die because of this. So, how do we get there? What are our modes? How do we balance the individual versus the group? In all of tragedy. Tragedy is the great art form. There's comedy too, but it's really tragedy. That's the great art form of the Greeks. In all of tragedy, the heroes always die because they have hubris. Antigone is going to die. Oedipus ends up gouging his eyes out and wandering the mountains of Greece by himself. It's bad. It's bad for everybody. So how is this done? It's done with Aristotle tells us there's several parts, but 2 of the most famous, 2 that you will recognize, are peripeteia, the reversal of fortune. What Aristotle calls the most powerful part of tragedy. It is the moment, what I just described. It is the moment where Oedipus looks at his wife and goes, no, that's not it. I'm sorry. Scratch that. Scratch that. It's the moment where he kills his dad and doesn't know it. It is the moment where Romeo kills Tybalt, and Romeo knows it. Romeo kills Tybalt and realizes, I have killed my wife's cousin. They are going to want revenge for this. And he screams up at the heavens, I am fortune's fool, that the gods are against me. It is the reversal of fortune. It is the moment that you commit the act you can't undo. It's the moment you leave the club with the person who is not your girlfriend. See the Backstreet Boys, The Call. Right up to that point, it's fine. He could flirt with her. He could talk about her. He could talk with the girl and all that. But then he gets the call from the girlfriend. If you know the Backstreet Boys, The Call. If you don't, go and look it up. And he says, hey, my phone is cutting out. My battery is almost dead. I won't be gone too long. I'm going to a place nearby. And the moment he leaves, does that, it's over. He's going to he's going to cheat on his girlfriend. And she's going to find out. And he's going to lose everything. It is this reversal of fortune. Everything is great right up until this moment. And then everything after it is bad, bad, bad. And it gets worse. So it is the moment in Titanic where the iceberg hits. The Titanic. Up to that point, up before that, it's great. It's pretty good for everybody. Kate Winslet Leonardo DiCaprio find love, even though they're of different classes. And everyone's going around going, this is such a great boat. This is a wonderful boat. But from the moment that iceberg hits, everything bad happens. Nobody is getting out of this alive. The second part is Anagnorisis. 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 That's the revelation of the true nature. This is what is Oedipus. I got ahead of myself. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Anagnorisis is the moment when you realize what's going on. It's the moment. It's Oedipus. The man I killed was my dad. And the people say, he was married to Jocasta. And Oedipus goes, I'm married to Jocasta now. That makes her my... Boom. It is the mic drop. Anagnorisis is the mic drop in Greek tragedy. It is where you realize what's really going on. It is Luke Skywalker being told, Darth Vader, the enemy of the first two movies, the person who he has been personally trying to fight, the person who might destroy the entire universe, is his dad. Not the guy who killed his dad so he has a righteous anger against and he could get vengeance for. No, it is his dad. And Luke is like, no, it's impossible. And then Darth Vader does the coolest thing ever. Think about it, son. Search your feelings. You'll know it to be true. Go ahead. Try it. And he's like, no. In the most important scene of overacting that I can have, because it's perfect for Anagnorisis in my lectures. Because that is the moment when it's true. Darth Vader is his dad. That he has been fighting against his father. For 20 years, he has thought his father was a great man. And he now realized, my father is a mass murderer. These two things, peripeteia and anagnorisis, lead to tragedy. And the tragedy, though, it can't just be bad stuff happens to people. It has to lead to catharsis, the emotional connection and identity, the release of emotions. It's why people go to Nicholas Sparks movies so they will cry. That's why people went 4, 5, 7, 8 times to Titanic. Back in 97, teenage girls would go 10 times. Why? Because you were able to have this emotion and cry and feel bad in public. Remember, this is always in public. You were allowed to do it. This release of emotion, both anger, right? Sadness, depression, all of your emotions. You think Greek people just sat there quietly? No. In the moment right before Oedipus stabs his father, the crowd is going to be like, no, don't do it. And he does it anyway. It's no different than yelling at the movie screen, don't go in there. Don't go in that room. Knowing the mass murderer is in there. And they go in there anyway. But that shows not the silliness of the viewer, the unsophistication of the viewer, like it's portrayed, but the greatness of the storytelling, that you identify with those characters, that you have an emotional connection, and that you identify with who they are and how they feel and their situation. You probably won't murder your father and marry your mother, but the story has to make you care about a guy who does. It has to make you care about Antigone. Antigone, who is fronting everybody. Her husband's like, just do what they say. Just follow the law. Her father-in-law, who says, just follow the law. I won't do anything. It's cool. Your brother, who was on my side in the rebellion, gets to be buried. Honor him. Your brother, who was a rebel against me, the ravens get to poke out his eyes. He's going to lie there in the sun till something eats him. And she has to be like, no, I have to bury both of them. They're my brothers. Our parents are dead. It's my job. And I have to do this. The gods want it that way. This is what nature wants. This is who I have to be honest to myself. And every man is like, Antigone, if you break the law, we have to punish you. Don't do it. And she does it. And not only does she does it publicly, so that they have to punish her, so that the husband have to choose between his wife and his dad. His dad, the king, has to choose between the law and his daughter-in-law, that everything comes crashing down on everybody's heads. Because not only does she do it, but she does it in hubris, to do it in public, to do it in a way that it has to be acknowledged. But to do it any other way is to lie and to be untruthful to her. And you have to get people who are like, just don't do it, and then feel bad when it happens. But also feel bad about Creon, who's the king, who is stuck enforcing the law he doesn't want to enforce, but it's the law. He doesn't want to have to execute his daughter-in-law. His son will be pissed. His grandchildren will be apoplectic. Grandpa murdered mom? What? WTF? Like, you are destroying your heirs. You're destroying yourself. Creon doesn't want to do it, but he gets pushed into the corner and he's mad. Lets his anger get control of him. He has hubris. Antigone has hubris. Everybody has hubris. And it leads them to do actions that they feel are the only thing they can do. But you have to have catharsis for the audience. They have to identify with each of these characters. If they don't, then they don't care. And they walk out and it was just entertainment and didn't matter. And for great stories to be great stories, it has to matter. You need the release of emotions. So it is Leia saying, I love you, and Han Solo saying, I know. And the crowd going, oh! And 30 years later at San Diego Comic-Con, people are dressing up, recreating that scene for their, like, weddings. It is community saying, why are you making us feel these things? Like, that's, the writer is looking at the crying people going, I did that. I did that. Because if they have no emotion, they don't care, you are a bad storyteller. It is what Up does with just its seats in the first 5 minutes of that movie. It is what Toy Story does in the recycling scene. Toy Story 3 does in its recycling scene, where all of the members join hands, join arms. You have seen them for 5 hours at this point. You have been with their story for 5 hours, and now they're facing being destroyed in the molten burners of the recycling pit. And if you're not like full of emotion, having done that journey, I've seen each of the Toy Story movies from when they were released in '95. If you're not sitting there going, oh no, this might actually be the end, then they're bad storytellers. I don't know any married couple that saw Up, that sat through the first 5 minutes, that were married for any significant amount of time, that were any young couple married for like 10 years, that sat through the first 5 minutes up and didn't come out going, oh my God, I don't even know what the rest of the movie was about the first 5 minutes. Meanwhile, their kids are like, dude, mom, what the hell, man? It's an empty chair. So you're like, oh, man. So much. It's with the balloons. He doesn't have balloons. No one's sitting there. He's 80 years old. He still has the chair. That's the catharsis. And that's what great storytelling is. That's what great literature is. It tells you something about yourself. It connects you to the actors. The actors who are fake, by the way. The story which is fake. Remember, this is a made-up story with made-up lines, with made-up words. It's fake, and yet you're having a real emotion to it. That's catharsis. Peripeteia, the reversal of fortune, where everything's good and then it's not, and you're going to hurtle to the end of your destruction. Anagnorisis, where you identify, oh my God, what is going on? How bad things have gotten. But ultimately, it's about the individual and the group, and how to have a society that values individuality and freedom, and yet has the cohesion to live together, to sacrifice for each other, to be part of a society. And it is drama, not school, not the military, though that works too, but it is drama where those values are presented, illuminated, shown off, highlighted for the younger generation. In our next episode, we talk about philosophy. Or we're going to talk about Greek philosophy, but we're going to really talk about three guys. We're going to talk about Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. There's much more philosophy, but we're trying to keep it relatively tight. And so we're just going to talk about the big three: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.